And this truly happened to me. Now you understand, when I share these experiences, I have never sought for a supernatural experience. All I've ever done is seek Jesus. And as I sought Jesus, as I gave him my heart, as I gave him my mind, as I gave him my life, he gave me these experiences. I have experiences all the time. God speaks to me. God has spoken to me many times audibly. I know it's hard for people to believe that, but all around me is the evidence that I've heard from heaven. This building, the TV network we're broadcasting from, the churches that God's allowed us to start, the books I've written. It's all evidence that God does still speak to people. And so I like to share an experience with you that where God took me to heaven. I'm in my barracks one night and I'm just praying. I'm crying out to God. I've been praying, probably saved for 2.5 months. And all of a sudden that room was filled with the tangible presence of God. Now, do you know what I mean by the tangible? It's like, you know, it's like if you're in a room and all of a sudden someone comes walking in with perfume on, and you go, well, what are you wearing? You can smell it. Well, the presence of God is so real that I'm crying and I'm weeping and I fall to my knees. I'm laying on my face when all of a sudden, Paul said, whether in the body or out of the body, I don't know, when all of a sudden this white portal opened up into that room. I mean, it is a glowing, pure white light portal. I'm looking up, and I don't know what to make of it, because there's this pure white portal, and I can remember to this day because it had straight sides, and it had like a curvature up on the top, like going through and then it had a flat floor, but it was a white open doorway. And I could see it was a tunnel. When out of this tunnel, to my shock and amazement, came this man dressed in white. He was probably close to 7 feet tall, and it was an angel. I see this angel, and I'm like a dead man. I can't move. I can't talk. I'm laying on the floor, and I'm sure I'm shaking like a bowl of jelly on an out of balance washing machine. Have you ever seen a washing machine get out of balance? I'm laying on the floor, man, I'm shaking. And this angel walks up to me. Now, I can only give you a brief description of what happened, because this is, I cannot describe to you everything. How do you take and portray in English words the realm of the spirit? It's very difficult. It's how do you describe? How would I describe to a blind man what a beautiful blossoming apple tree would look like if a blind man had never seen a tree? If a man was born blind, how could I describe to him what a beautiful flower would look like, or what animals would look like? Well, it's almost the same way with me, trying to describe people what heaven is like. It is so beyond imagination. Well, this angel walks up to me, and he basically tells me that he has been sent of God in order to take me into heaven. And so I'm laying there like a dead man, and he grabs me by my right hand, and he picks me up like I'm just like a feather. And at that moment, I knew this angel had incredible strength, incredible. He just picks me up like I'm nothing, sets me on my feet, and I'm standing next to this guy. And all of a sudden, he takes me like a little child, like a father would take his little boy, like a 2-year-old little boy, and he takes me into this tunnel of light. Now, the minute I go into this tunnel of light, it's like a part of heaven is in this tunnel, because there's complete, absolute peace, joy, tranquility. Matter of fact, I didn't have a thought of earth anymore. I didn't think about what I had been through, what I had gone through, the pain, the suffering. I didn't even think about, my mind is just filled with overwhelming peace and joy. And it's like I'm out for a Sunday afternoon stroll with my closest friend, you know, like maybe even with my wife in a good sense. But we're walking down this tunnel, and he's not saying a word, and I'm walking, and I'm holding his hand like a little boy. And I'm just walking on like a little boy, and I'm walking, and I'm walking, and I'm walking. We must have walked for miles and miles, and it seemed like this tunnel had an upward blend. Now, as I'm walking in this tunnel, though, I noticed that for every step I took, it was like I'd gone 1,000 feet. It's like, have you ever been to the airport and they've got those escalators that you get on to get to your plane faster, and everybody else is walking on the hard floor, but you're walking on these moving walkways, and you're passing everybody up. That's what I'm going at the speed of light. Every step I'm taking, and maybe I was going thousands of miles a second, I don't know, but I'm walking with this angel, and I'm looking, and I know I'm moving at an incredible speed of light. So we're walking, it seems like forever. Next thing I know, without me realizing it, the angel's gone. I'm by myself, but I'm not alone. God's presence is so thick and so heavy, it's mind-boggling. I'm just walking along and enjoying this walk in this white portal, this long white tunnel, when all of a sudden I came to the end of the tunnel just as fast as I entered in, and I stepped out of this tunnel, and I'm on the side of this most amazing green hill you ever seen. It's like I stepped into this wonderland of an amazing park. And I step onto this hill, and I look up to my left, and here is this mountain range, beautiful mountain range with snow-capped mountains, and there's this amazing river coming down from the side of the mountain, and it's like there's a majestic rainbows all around this waterfall coming down from the mountain. Now, the first thing, and I don't know where to explain to you, but I experienced an explosion of sensations that the human mind could not comprehend. Explosion of colors, explosion of sounds, explosion of smells. I mean, everything is 1,000 times more beautiful. I'm telling you, this was so incredible that I cannot even explain it to you. It is beyond the imagination, and the Bible says, eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, neither entered in the heart of man those things which God has prepared for them that love him. And so I step into this Garden of Eden, and I'm looking around, and I see colors that are so vibrant. Matter of fact, when I came back out of that experience, everything from that time to this time has seemed very, very dull and very dim. I mean, it's like I got spoiled. I'm in heaven, and I've experienced this wonder, this amazement. Now, in this place, in this Garden of Eden, I did not see another human being. And I cannot explain to you why God allowed me to see certain things and other things I didn't see. But I'm on the side of this hill, and the first thing I notice is that I hear sounds. I hear crickets and frogs. I hear cows that are mooing. I hear the roaring of lions. I hear all of these sounds. I hear the bees. I hear their wings. I hear the wind blowing. But it was all like this orchestra. It's like everything was in tune. Every sound, every beat of the wings of the bee or the birds, every sound was like this beautiful, majestic orchestra. It wasn't, sometimes you get into a city and you hear the horns beeping and the people yelling and the trucks revving their engine. It's nothing but confusion. Well, I know in the natural, if you would have been in Noah's Ark when the flood was going on, it probably was like total chaos. All the animals screaming in fear and carrying on. But no, I'm in this amazing place, and I'm telling you that it was all in harmony. Perfect harmony. It was like all these animals were trained to moo and to roar, and the bees were made to flap their wings in perfect tune. You cannot imagine what I'm talking about. Everything was in complete, absolute harmony. So I'm hearing all this splendid, and yet I can think, and yet it's not too loud. It's just perfect. It's just like this never-ending song of creation. So I'm hearing, and also I'm looking, and now the colors are so vibrant. The flowers are so vibrant. I have a neighbor who was born colorblind, and he told me basically he's never seen color. All he can see is different shades of black and white and gray. And he told me it was just ridiculous because he's never seen color. And he told me this. He said, I'm glad I've never seen color because I cannot imagine it would be too chaotic. Well, that's because he's never seen color. It's not chaotic. Color is beautiful. Purple and yellow and red and blue and green and God must like blue. Look at the blue heavens. God must like green. Look at the green grass. But it was these colors were like, and I know this is hard to believe, but it's like these colors were living. The colors were living colors. They were alive. I don't know how to explain this to you. I know this is going to sound weird, but as I looked at the grass and I looked at the flowers, it was like they were intelligent life. They were alive. It's like, and I saw a bear with its cubs down in the valley, and it was eating grass. And I saw a lion over here, and I saw deer over there, and I saw rabbits, and they were the most perfected animals you could have imagined. It just if I could just bring that bear back into this world, it was so majestic and so beautiful, probably carnal man would want to worship it. How do I explain this? It was so perfected. It was unbelievable. These animals and the colors everywhere were so majestic. Everything was just so amazing. It's like the colors just came out at you, and I could tell that the flowers and the grass and the insects were all intelligent life. When I would step on the grass would bend down but not get hurt and spring right back up. It's like everything went back into its perfect place, and yet I knew it all had free wills. And so I'm standing there, and and this all happens in a matter of seconds. I'm overwhelmed, and then smells. Oh, the smells would just. Have you ever, like my daughter says, Dad, if coffee smelled, tasted as good as it smelled, she said I couldn't stop drinking it. Well, the smells that filled the air were so overwhelming. It's just like you could. Can I say this? That you could taste the smells in the air. Have you ever gone by, like, I think they do this on purpose, like in restaurants where they'll be cooking like Kentucky Fried Chicken. They purposely pump the chicken in the air, and you can taste it as you're driving by, and you want to stop at Kentucky Fried Chicken. Well, that's what it was like. It was just like, I'm eating these smells. I'm eating it. Oh, I can't explain this. So I knew, though, at that moment I was there for a reason. God had a purpose for me being there. I knew I had to get somewhere, and I looked off into the distance, and there was a beautiful river that had flowed from the mountainside. It was going down and was going up to my right, and there was a beautiful river. It was just almost almost like air. You ever see hot air shimmer in the desert? Well, it was shimmering. It was so transparent. It was shimmering. It looked like it was invisible water flowing through this majestic river. And I could see off to my right there was this forest of trees that were like redwood trees. I mean, over 200, have you ever been to a redwood forest out in California, Oregon? They're over 200 feet tall. The tower across our facility is 250 feet tall. I've climbed it about 5 or 6 times, but these trees are just so majestic, and they're anywhere from 20 to 40 feet wide, and they're over there. And I noticed that there is a stone walkway, this beautiful cobblestone walkway, beautiful stones that is like a pathway going over a bridge, going into these woods. And I know I got to get on that pathway. And so everything is symbolic in heaven as it is in earth. So I finally make my way down, and you know what? I'm walking, but I'm not tired. I'm not weary. I'm not breathing heavy. I mean, I didn't look at my body, so I don't know if I was in a glorified body or not. All I know is that I wasn't tired. It was so relaxing, but I knew I had to get there. I had to get there. So I finally got onto this pathway, and I'm walking past wild animals. And it's just like, they were like house pets. You know, the Bible says that the day will come when it'll be like the lamb will lie down with the lion, and is heaven full of animals, Pastor Mike? Oh yeah, it is. Sure, because God created animals. You know how many species of animals God's created? Millions and millions of species. God likes animals, you know. Anyways, that's a whole different story. People don't know what animals have souls, but that's a whole different. Anyway, so I'm walking on this path, and I'm walking towards this majestic forest, and I get to this bridge that goes over this river, and as I get, and it has railings all to the left and to the right, and they're made out of the same stone. And I remember when I get to the middle of the bridge, I leaned over and I looked down, and to my shock and amazement, the river was full of tropical fish. But they weren't just tropical fish. They were so many types and sizes and shapes. They weren't eating one another. They didn't seem like they were in a hurry. They were just swimming along and having fun. And they were multiple colors. And they were like deep, and it's like they were swimming in the air because the water was so transparent. You could see some blueness in the water, but the water was so transparent, it looked like the fish were swimming in the air. And it was so, and I knew I could just lean over the side of that that stone bridge and watch them for days on end. I knew I could, but I knew in my heart I had to keep on moving. And so I turned away from the fish and I continued. And I finally get to this forest and I'm walking amongst these trees. Now, I see ferns of all types and sizes. I see plants under the majestic trees. Now, what's so amazing, these trees are high with humongous branches, and yet under the forest, you would think it would be dark, but it's not dark. It's not totally bright like the light, but it's just this real soothing, almost romantic darkness. You know what I'm talking about? It's just like, it's a wonderful darkness. It's not an evil darkness. It's just kind of a little bit of a dark, and yet you can see everything. And beautiful ferns. I saw no thorns. And by the way, there was flowers before I got to the forest everywhere. Just, it's like this exquisite gardener knew exactly where to put what type of flower, where to put what type of tree, where to put what type of plant. It was like, nothing was as if it was happened to chance. Everything was just this most exquisite landscaper you could have imagined. And his name is Jesus. And he had put everything exactly where it belonged, to where everything was in harmony. So I'm walking through this forest, and these majestic trees are everywhere, and I'm going deeper, and the pathway now going through this forest is as straight as you can shoot an arrow. It's never ending. It's just on and on and on. And I'm just walking through this forest when all of a sudden, to my shock and amazement, the trees around me were filled with birds. Now, they're not just any kind of birds. They're like tropical birds. And they're made of so many different colors, parakeets and canaries and just the list would be endless. And I'm not a bird expert. All I know is the trees are filled with multicolored, multi-sized birds. And the branches everywhere is just like billions of these birds. And I'm looking, and now the forest is filled with complete amazing colors and music and sound. And I knew that they were worshiping God. And their heads were aimed up towards heaven, and they were worshiping the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So I'm standing there, and I'm surrounded by these birds now, and I am weeping. I am weeping with joy. I'm crying. I'm weeping. Oh, and I got my hands lifted up, and I'm just worshiping God with these birds of all kinds of types and sizes and shapes and colors. And all of a sudden, the angel is next to me. His hand is on my shoulder, but I'm not shocked. You know, like if somebody walks up to you and they put their hand, now this is a big dude, man. He's over 7 feet tall, so you'd think, but I wasn't. There was no fear. Listen, in that place, there was no anxiety. There was no fear. There was no worry. There was no selfishness. There was no pride. There was no anger. There was just nothing but heaven. I was encased in heaven. And even the divine nature of God was I was walking in the nature of God in that place, because in this earth, I've got things in me that I've still got to deal with. But there, it was like it had all been dealt with. Man, I would want to have stayed there. But I'm there, and angels, that same angel, and he basically says to me, he says, "Son of man, do you know what these birds are?" And I said, "No." He said, "They are the tribes, the tongues, the kindreds, and the nations of the world that God will have you to be a part of bringing into the kingdom." For in other words, these birds were symbolic of souls, of tongues and tribes, nations and peoples that I knew this though. I knew this. I was just a small gear in God's big machinery. It wasn't like I was going to win these souls. I was going to get them saved. No, I was going to be a part of a great awakening. I was going to be a part of a great move of God. I believe the final move of God. So as I'm standing there weeping with joy, because I knew when I first got born again I was called to preach. I didn't know what it meant to preach. I didn't understand it. But now I knew I was commissioned. I knew I was God ordained and God sent to be a part of this great end time gathering. I knew it. And as I'm standing there, all of a sudden, boom, I'm not there no longer. I'm in heaven on a sea of glass. Now, I never knew there was a sea of glass because I had not read the book of Revelation yet. I'm on this sea of glass. And this sea of glass is never ending. And now this sea of glass, it was like a literal sea with multiple colors floating through it. It's like waves. Have you ever been into like where they do one of these discos and they got lights that are flashing but this under the floor? Well, it's like the waves of color are flashing on this sea of glass under the floor. I'm standing on this sea of glass. As I'm standing on the sea of glass, it was in my heart to start going straight ahead in front of me. I could see something off in the distance. And I remember walking across the sea of glass, just overwhelmed with such. Now, I had experienced the presence of God, but now the presence of God is so thick, it's like I'm walking through water. It's the presence of God is so real, I cannot explain. I'm walking, and I see thunderings and lightnings ahead of me, and this roaring ahead of me, and my heart was being filled with fear, but it was the divine fear of God. And I'm walking, as I'm getting closer, all of a sudden I began to see those things that John describes in the book of Revelation. But my eyes were not focused upon the rainbows and upon the seraphims and the cherubims and all of and my eyes were glued to the one sitting on this throne that seemed to be like white living fire, and he was like a flame of fire, but it was no yellows. It was pure white fire, like an arc welder. If you ever get around somebody arc welding, they say don't look at it because it'll burn the retina of your eyes. It was just like this brilliant, and he was glowing. And I saw the Son of God off to his right hand side, and it was the Father sitting on his throne. And as I got closer and closer, and it didn't last very long, you understand, because it's like the minute I seen him, and it's hard to explain time to you, because in heaven a second can be eternity. How can I explain that? Time doesn't exist in heaven, and yet time is there, because God is the author of time. I see God sitting on the throne. It must have been only a couple of seconds, but it felt like forever. And when I seen God, I fell like a dead man. I hit the floor, that sea of glass. I hit it, wham, like a dead man. As I'm on the floor, all of a sudden, I heard the Father speaking to me. And I knew it was the Father. And he was saying to me words that are not lawful to speak on this side of heaven. And as his words would hit me, I think if you would have stood off from a distance, you would have seen lightning coming out of the mouth of the Father and hitting my little body. Because them lightning bolts would hit my body, and my whole body would begin to shake. And it's like those words, and when those words got into me, they would explode like a nuclear bomb. Every time he spoke, the words would hit me, and then it would explode inside of me. Now I knew it had to be God, that my body was not flying into pieces in a million directions, because it was such power. I cannot explain to you. I've never experienced power like that in my life since then. He spoke those words, and they would hit my body like lightning, explode inside of me, and they would like run to every cell of my body, from my little toes to the ends of my fingers to the top of my hair. I could feel it in my hair. And then he would speak again, it would explode again. Now this felt like it went on for hours. He is speaking into me unspeakable words, and they're exploding inside of me. Speaking, exploding inside of me. Speaking, and I'm laying on this floor, and I must have been shaking like somebody who's been put into an electric chair, because this thing is shaking me, man. I'm laying on the sea of glass, and it's exploding inside of me, and all of a sudden, he stopped. Next thing I know, I was no longer in heaven. I knew this. I knew that he had spoken into me his design will for my life and for what he had called me to do. Now, don't think for a moment I think I'm anything, because he puts these treasures in earthen vessels, that the excellency of the glory may be of God and not of us. It's not me. It's for his glory, it's for his honor, it's for his praise. And he uses the foolish. He says that he takes the foolish, and he uses it that because he said, I'll share my glory with nobody. And so, Pastor Mike, people say to me, why do you think God has done all these things for you? Here, not this February, the February before, I wrote a book on this, where I had an experience like John in the Isle of Patmos, where the heavens were open, and I saw the Lamb slain before the foundation of the world, and I saw the blood flowing from his side, and I drank of that blood, and I fell as a dead man. And I mean, that was so real, I cannot explain it to you, but that happened 2 Februaries ago. But it's as I hide the word of God in my heart. So the next thing I know, I'll make a long story short, I'm on the street in a city, and it's a very dangerous part of the city. I know this, and I see these 2 men walking towards me. They were kind of tall men, and I began to preach Jesus to them. And as I'm preaching, their faces began to distort into like the image of demons. And before I know it, they were on me, and they were beating me. They knocked me down. They were stomping on my face, but it's like I had no fear. And then as fast as that happened, I was back in my room. I was weeping and crying and wailing. And I knew I was called to preach. And I've done it for the last 38 years. I've preached. I've preached. I've preached. I've preached. I preached. I preached. And I'm not done preaching. And I still got a lot of preaching to do.